very much, and I love you, and thank you for dyeing your eyebrows. Leland Vittert is going to take over for me right now. You know he did. You see the hair, you see the eyebrows. They don't match. Hey, Leland, how you doing?
Hey, I was going to say, Cuomo, can we just have John talk a lot? He's pretty smart.
He's so smart and so successful. I don't know why he dyes his eyebrows like that.
Why is he friends with you?
He's a serious guy. Known each other a long time. I was his boss in a gas station when we were teenagers.
Okay. Is that when he started dyeing his hair?
No, he did it to be taken more seriously in the investment market. You know, he started off as a football player, one of the all-time leading rushers at Cornell, and then he went to the Vikings.
Wow. See? Proves that working in a gas station, I mean, you can amount to a TV anchor or be really serious. There we go. Always something.
Or you could be rich like him.
Good to see you, my friend. Thank you. Breaking news, as usual. That happens in the Trump administration. Seems to be every night now that we start with this. There wasn't much breaking news during the Biden administration. House Speaker Mike Johnson late tonight is scrapping a key vote on the budget blueprint. This was the first step in extending the president's tax cuts. Trump has called on hardline Republicans to, quote, quit grandstanding and get in line with the measure. The budget goes hand in hand with offsetting higher costs from his tariff policy. Sort of shows perhaps that he doesn't have quite as much control over the Republican Congress as he would like. All right, speaking of the tariffs, the stock market soared after Trump paused reciprocal tariffs on most countries for 90 days. The fight, though, is far from over. Today, the president spun the pause as, of course, the art of the deal.
We went from, pretty moderate today, but over the last few days it looked pretty glum, to, I guess they say it was the biggest day in financial history. That's a pretty big change. And I think the word would be flexible. You have to be flexible.
The Dow had its best day percentage-wise since 2020. S&P, best rise since 2008. The NASDAQ had its best day since 2001. Those numbers gave President Trump and the rest of the country a moment to exhale. Right now, futures are mixed. Well, after today, even, not bad. As we told you Monday night, though, and last night, and we'll remind you again tonight, this story is not just about the markets. Trump wants to remake the world economy and put China in a box. So yes, he paused tariffs on a number of American allies. He raised them again on Chinese goods. And his Treasury Secretary threatened any country that dared take the Chinese side.
I can tell the rest of the world that I'm not sure whether it was the prime minister or the economic minister in Spain made some comments this morning. Oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat.
So this is still a massive gamble, like Ronald Reagan gambled in an effort to win the Cold War. There will be rough times ahead. This isn't over by any means, but it's a good start. We're going to get to the coming showdown with China in a minute, but this week proves something important, but also maybe scary about America. We can now say with confidence American politics is not about ideas or principles. It is about one man, Donald John Trump. He named Liberation Day, remember that was last Thursday, lots happened since then. Well, Liberation Day liberated both parties from any remaining intellectual honesty, consistency, or true beliefs. And that's our Why It Matters memo tonight. For years, you've heard about how America is bitterly divided between the left and the right. But now America is divided by the pro-Trump crowd and the anti-Trump crowd. Ideas don't matter. Principles don't matter. Hypocrisy doesn't matter. What you said you believed in last week or even yesterday no longer matters in Washington. Take, for example, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. So just listen here to how she talked about Trump's tariffs today versus yesterday.
President Trump has a spine of steel, and he will not break. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here.
We're not sure whether or not investors in the Republican Party at all really understand what the president is doing here. He has told him that himself. Republicans have told us that themselves. The same Republicans, though, who defended the tariffs as necessary for national security and told us it would raise trillions in dollars in revenue, they defended the president. They said how important it was that they believed in the tariffs. They're now celebrating President Trump's 90-day pause on the tariffs because it just proves that Trump is a genius.
This is the brilliance of what he's done. I was worried just like everybody else. But then everybody came to the table. 50 countries came to the table and said, let's do 0-0.
The fact that he's, adapting his approach in service of those broader goals is what you'd want in a leader.
He understands how to negotiate, and I think that's the key word here.
The president's shown a willingness to change tactics as the situation changes.
Earlier this week, Republicans were defending the president for not negotiating. Last week, they were praising Trump for never negotiating. Tariffs were here to stay. Same Republicans who used to be pro-free trade are now all protectionists. The same Republicans who say the tax cuts on wealthy Americans drove growth now want no taxes on tips paid for by the wealthy. The same Republicans who believe in small government, or I should say believed in small government, now believe in government control of higher education. Same Republicans who cried about free speech now like icing out news organizations based on their coverage. A lot of that, in fact, probably all of it, is led by Trump himself.
We have to have a free press, which we don't have. We don't have a free press. We have a very dishonest press.
In quainter times, being a Republican meant you believed in conservative values. Now, being a Republican means North Korean-like explanations for Trump's policies and worldview. Now, Trump and Republicans would argue that's what people voted for. Fine. So, when Donald Trump claims victory, you should clap.
Everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, say, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out. And it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought.
This is not just a Republican issue situation. The Democrats are exactly the same in this. They don't believe anything except opposing Trump. They need to do some soul searching of their own. We'll ask Debbie Wasserman Schultz why Democrats can't praise Trump for finally taking on China. But first, if there's one main takeaway from today, it's the pause on tariffs and the market reaction is not proof that Trump's plan is necessarily working, but it is a huge step in the right direction of taking on China. That's not us saying it, but rather both Republicans and Democrats. Both have argued for years that taking on China, their thuggery, their theft, their manipulation, their cheating needs to happen. Finally, Trump has given everybody exactly what they said needed to happen. We begin tonight with Congressman Jim Jordan, Republican from the state of Ohio. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. You agree with my assessment that oh, good. You bet you agree with me. That this is now, the Republicans are now just the party. Republicans are just now the party of Trump.
No, we're the party of common sense. The Democrats are the party of crazy. You can go down every issue. It's crazy to defund the police. It's crazy not to have a border. It is crazy to have men compete against women in sports. It's crazy to let a Chinese spy balloon fly clear across the country and then shoot it down. And it's crazy not to stand up for American interest and take on China. That's the right thing to do. That's the bad actor who he's focusing on today. And it's crazy not to say, 70-some countries have now come to us and want to negotiate. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll hit the pause button and we'll negotiate. That is common sense. We're the party of the middle class. We're the beer and blue jeans party, not the wine and cheese party. And we're the party of common sense. And that's what you see from President Trump. And that's why 77 million people voted for him on November 5th.
I get you. At the same time, though, I had Republicans on this show. You were out there praising Donald Trump for saying he would never negotiate. And others were asked, what happens when people are willing to make deals? Nope, never negotiating because Donald Trump believes in tariffs, and tariffs are going to bring jobs back.
I don't think I said that, Leland. I think what I said is I trust the president to get the deal that's best for the country. I mean, he's a guy who came up with one of the greatest political slogans and campaign issues in history, make America great again.
That was Ronald Reagan.
Bringing manufacturing jobs back to here. Part of that is focusing on the middle class and on working class people. Part of that is just saying we're going to focus on America's interest. And all these countries who said last week, oh, it'd be terrible to put tariffs on. Well, meanwhile, if they're so darn bad, why don't you get rid of the tariffs you put on our goods that come to your country? And President Trump understood that, and he said, this is going to happen. And guess what? 70-some countries said, oh, they had a come to Jesus moment and said, we're going to talk with you now, and we're going to negotiate this. God bless them for doing so.
Right. And look, your dad was a union worker. You've talked about this. General Motors, Dayton, Ohio. Right? Yep. There were a lot of plants in Dayton, Ohio. I visited it. There's none anymore. We were told by Republicans that these tariffs were necessary on all countries to bring these manufacturing jobs back to America. There was the golden age of American manufacturing coming, and now these tariffs aren't happening. They're gone. Does that mean the golden age of American manufacturing isn't coming?
Well, maybe you missed the fact that I don't know how many companies have pledged how many billions of dollars that they're going to invest in this country. That's construction, that is plants, that is jobs, that is opportunity, that's economic growth. President Trump's announced those. There for a while, it was every single day when he first was sworn into office 70-some days ago, 80-some day, whenever that was. So that is happening. That is coming back because of his leadership and his focus on America. And he's, as he said, this is the idea that now 75 countries want to sit down and negotiate a better deal for us, want to say, oh, we're willing to talk to you. Do you think that happens if he doesn't do what he did last Thursday? If he doesn't have that union worker there talking about what happened in Detroit, what happened in Dayton, Ohio? I don't think that all happens but for his leadership. And now here we are. We're getting to negotiate. And oh, by the way, the day he announces we're going to hit the pause and negotiate, the market goes through the roof. That's pretty good for America. We're going to negotiate trade deals. The market went up today. Now, look, like the president said, the market does this. We understand. But it's a pretty good day today.
Okay. Still, though, there's not been a single deal that's been done, right?
Well, he probably can't get 75 countries to agree. I'm not talking about 75. I'm talking days
about one.
Shazam. It's all going to happen. Well, I think we had a good deal from our best friend, the state of Israel, yesterday when Prime Minister Netanyahu was in town earlier this week talking about what they want to do. God bless them. There's our best friend, best ally. We should do everything we can to help Israel, and they want to help us as well in this trade issue. So I think that's pretty darn good. That was announced, I think, yesterday or the day before. I forget. I'm losing track of which day it was.
Yeah, well, Israel announced 0% tariffs even preemptively, and then President Trump put 17% tariffs on them. But I think you're proving my point here that the Republican Party has become the party of explaining and supporting everything Donald Trump does. You made the point 77 million people voted for him. Ron Johnson, another huge supporter of President Trump, had this to say. Take a listen.
I still don't know exactly what his total strategy is. We know what his goal was. I mean, to a certain, he wants reciprocity. I'm relieved like the markets are relieved. At some point in time, I think it'll stabilize. And I don't know what the end game is here yet.
Is the end game just making America great again, and however Donald Trump goes about doing that, Republicans are going to support him?
No, the end game is to make sure middle-class families don't get their taxes raised later this year, make sure that we actually secure the border, make sure that we have better opportunity, better growth, companies coming here, investing in here like they've already been announcing day after day after day. I mean, I think that's the end game. It's about making America the greatest place, continuing to be the greatest place on the planet. That's what his goal is, and the country understood it. It's not like any of this is a surprise. President Trump told us he was going to secure the border. He did it in, like 8 weeks. And now we need to make sure he gets the resources so we can make sure it stays secure. He told us he was going to have the DOGE effort. He told us he was going to lead that effort. And that's what's happening there. He told us he was going to make America great, try to bring back manufacturing jobs and deal with this issue. It's not like it's a surprise. He campaigned on it. Now he's doing it. And I learned a long time ago, any objective worth accomplishing, any goal that's noteworthy, that's worthwhile, that's lasting, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes work. It is never easy. So this isn't going to be easy either. And President Trump is committed to make it happen, but he's going to do it in the smartest way possible, which is, I think, what that decision was all about today.
Agreed that America is the greatest country on earth. There has never been anything better or conceived out of better ideas. Congressman, it is good to see you as always.
Yep.
Thank you. I've said it before. If I'm ever in trouble, I want you as my spokesperson. You are
come back on more.
You are a loyal warrior. You're welcome anytime, sir. It's good to see you.
You bet, Leland. Take care.
Yeah. All right. Well, fair is fair. The same Democrats who demanded tariffs to protect American workers cried bloody murder when Trump protected American workers. And now they're not happy after the tariff pause. Can Democrats figure out a message other than being angry with Trump?
This is chaos. This is government by chaos. He keeps changing.
I'm Leland Vittert, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, NewsNation. News for all America. For the past week, we heard Democrats losing their minds over President Trump's tariffs. So when he paused them today, you might think they would be relieved. The stock market certainly were. That's what they said they were worried about. You would be wrong. The Democrats screamed even louder.
This is chaos. This is government by chaos.
Chaos, incompetence, and carelessness. That is the hallmark of the Trump presidency.
Well, frankly, ever since he got elected, it's been one damn thing after another.
WTF? Who's in charge? This is amateur hour.
In quainter times, being a Democrat meant you believed in progressive values, like tariffs against China to protect American jobs.
The Chinese give lip service and don't change their trade policies a jot. We have talked and talked and talked to the Chinese till we're blue in the face. The time for action is now.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist?
With us now, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Democrat of the state of Florida. It's nice to see you, man.
You too.
Pleasure. Welcome to the
Thank
set.
you, Leland.
Let's start micro, see if we can expand out a little.
Okay.
Tariffs punishing China, taking them on for cheating, for stealing, for torturing, for thuggery, for taking American jobs. Good thing.
Good thing if you use it strategically.
Okay.
Tariffs used strategically to make sure that we can press for a certain outcome is smart economics. But Trump and Musk have us on a downhill-only roller coaster ride where, you get to where you think you're going to crash to the bottom, only he doesn't really pull up in time.
Okay, well, look, for the past week, I've sympathized with a lot of Americans who have been really worried about the markets. That was the metric Democrats were using. The markets rallied today because I think what they saw is doing exactly what you just said, which was using tariffs strategically against China. Why isn't that something Democrats can get behind?
There's nothing strategic about the decision that he made today. And who knows whether he's going to leave it in place tomorrow. There's still more tariffs that are planned to be added on. We still have very significant tariffs that are on. We have the highest average tariffs on other countries that we've had in 100 years. And it's not just about the stock market. Look, the stock market, as a result of his policies, are on a serious roller coaster ride. So how is it possible for businesses to plan, for there to be consumer confidence? And I can tell you that under this president, I have had more calls from small business owners to my district office with business owners telling me, I am not sure that I am going to be able to stay in business if this president's tariff policies remain.
I have heard some of those very same calls. But
that didn't happen when Joe Biden was president.
Well, Donald Trump spoke to that. Take a listen.
The Democrats have taken a lot of beatings. They have lost their confidence. They've gone crazy. How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her? Is that real? Are they serious about that? That's their new star? If that's their new star, they're in serious trouble.
Interestingly, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy, they've wanted to do this for years, but they never had a president that had the guts to do it, because it does take guts, believe me.
If taking on China is a good thing, does it not prove my point that when Donald Trump takes on China and Democrats scream that anything Donald Trump does must be bad for Democrats.
It's not. What he's doing isn't gutsy. What he's doing is bonkers. I mean, there is economists across the country.
Sometimes bonkers can be gutsy at the same time, but go ahead.
I think bonkers in terms of making sure that people have confidence in our economy, that investors over the long term have confidence in knowing, the trajectory of where we're going to go. That kind of policy makes sense. But we have no earthly idea what Donald Trump is going to do on any given day, how he's going to react, and his formula that he used. Every major trusted economist.
The formula was wild.
It was wild. So how do you have confidence in that?
Okay. So the same arguments were made about Donald Trump's policies and his tariffs policies 2017, 2018, 2019. The economy, 2017, 2018, 2019, up until COVID, was doing phenomenally. Real wages were up. Real wages for minorities were up. There was not much to argue with about the first Trump economy.
And the economy at the end of the Biden administration was the strongest economy in the world. And he just keeps lying about where the economy was.
You're talking about what his policies will do. He's doing the same thing Trump did in the first term.
No. He is not doing it. He is doing much more significant cuts, much more across the board. Across the board, tariffs are not strategic at all, and the policy that he's adopted is not designed strategically and makes no sense. So how are investors supposed to make longer-term decisions? How are businesses? Look, tariffs are taxes. And
I've said that. I agree with you. I said that from the very beginning.
And he ran, Leland, on lowering kitchen table costs.
Okay.
His tariff policy is going to do nothing but increase costs, which is why business owners are freaking out, which is why the cost of groceries
the cost of groceries, we can argue with, but let's think about this.
I don't know. I shop every Sunday for my family.
59% of likely voters believe the Democratic Party should adopt a more moderate stance. 27% think they should become more liberal. 37% of registered voters say they approved of the party. 36% in February. The lowest approval ratings for the party since March of 2018. Do you guys need a message other than opposing Donald Trump?
Our message has been resonating. You can tell by the results of this Tuesday's elections. We won a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that Donald Trump won statewide just 4 months ago.
Okay.
We had much better than ever performance in 2 Florida congressional districts that Donald Trump won by 37 and 30
Angry voters vote.
And 15 and 14 points are what my 2 new colleagues have won by. So look, consistent strategic policies that make sense, not slashing Medicaid, cutting Social Security.
I hear. I've gone down that road before.
Loading it up to help billionaires, not what voters asked for.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
First wrote about this in War Notes. That's your chance for an inside look at the show every day. Go to warnotes.com to subscribe for free. You will be delighted, smarter, and the envy of all of your friends until they subscribe as well. At Leland Vittert on social media. Email comes out every day. Donald Trump says he is taking on China. What happens when China takes on Trump?
You're listening to On Balance with Leland Vittert on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Yesterday, Americans feared going broke. We empathized with you. Scary times. Now it appears everything's going to be fine because the market rallied. Sad to report, not even close. On Monday, we laid out Trump's gamble to reshape the world economy and take on China. He's defying conventional wisdom because conventional wisdom, all the experts say you have to manage China's rise. Back in the 1980s, there was a similar conventional wisdom. And Reagan took Trump's approach with the Soviet Union in the Cold War. The Gipper didn't want to manage the Cold War, as the experts said. He wanted to win the Cold War. The experts said it risked nuclear confrontation. Reagan escalated, and he broke the Soviets and they backed down. Say what you want about Trump, but his approach is gutsy. Today, we were proven right. Trump retaliated even further on China today, increasing tariffs on them to 125%, despite putting a pause on all other retaliatory tariffs for 90 days. And he had some choice words for President Xi today.
What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right.
The past week in the markets are going to look like small potatoes when Trump and Xi start actually trading blows. Just a few things come to mind. What, might you ask, can China do to America? Blockade Taiwan, dump U.S. assets and treasury bills, launch massive cyber attacks, and or randomly block the United States supply chain. Probably also arrest a bunch of American citizens in China. That's just off the top of my head. With us now, Steve Yates, who knows a lot more about China than I do, than almost anyone does, Senior Research Fellow on China, National Security Policy at the Heritage Foundation, Asian Studies Center, former Deputy National Security Advisor for the Bush administration. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. The court has accepted you as an expert. If Trump is intent on taking on China, I hypothesize that today, the past week, will just be the very, very beginning. Fair analysis?
It is. The only thing I would add to the frame is that for a long time, we tend to look, for maybe good reason, at the American inputs into this equation. And I would argue the most important strategic shift of the last 20 years is the rise of Xi Jinping and his different direction he's taken the Chinese Communist Party. For most of his predecessors, they would bide their time and hide their strengths. For Xi's tenure, the fangs are out with the open smile. They've done things that are very aggressive to their neighbors. They've been much more aggressive with the United States. We've had the era not just of hollowing out of economies, but territorial claims of expansion. We've had funny spy balloons and not so funny things like COVID and fentanyl, where right. China doesn't take any accountability. So we're dealing with a different China, and they have their calculus. Xi has picked fights he didn't need to pick, like crushing Hong Kong. As you mentioned, the encirclement of Taiwan. Pretty much all Taiwan's done for the last 30 years is invest in China, and it's been major, major fuel for that economic expansion. So this is the part where Trump has stepped in. The World Trade Organization has not moderated China's trade behavior. The international system, people refer to the rules-based international order, it hasn't moderated any of these other activities. And so Trump is doing something different. He's using the leverage we have, access to our consumer market. It's big, it's risky, it's going to be a big change.
Yeah, and the risk is just beginning. A lot there, phenomenal analysis. One thing that Donald Trump said today is that he doesn't blame China. China wants to be on the same level as the United States. They want to be seen as a superpower. They want to, as you say, have fangs, but they want to have tentacles all around the world. They've been able to continue to rise over 20 years under Xi Jinping. You point that out. Donald Trump says he actually doesn't blame China for that. Take a listen.
I don't blame China for what happened. I blame the people sitting right at this desk, right behind this desk or another desk. You get your choice of 7. I happen to pick the Resolute. But I blame the people sitting behind in this chair, behind this desk, for being stupid, incompetent, or not having courage. This should have been done years ago. This should have been done before Obama, in all fairness.
Now, before Obama was your boss, George W. Bush. That shot aside, his weakness towards China has been a bipartisan issue in America. Who now has the upper hand, Xi Jinping or Donald Trump?
Well, Xi Jinping has to decide how far he wants to go to wreck things. Donald Trump has the upper hand in the sense that if you just look over the last week, 70 plus heads of government are approaching the United States to negotiate terms more favorable probably to the United States. Among that coalition is every big economy in the world except for China's. China's went in the other direction. And the more that Xi took on retaliation instead of negotiation, while he's taking on these big territorial aggressive claims, while there hasn't been accountability in other areas, while there's been alleged dumping in the European market and other areas, China's not exactly winning friends and influencing people. People can talk about the tactics of Trump, but if you just look at the fruits of the last week, I might not have chosen this path, but we're in a better place now than we were before in getting a coalition of the willing to move in a direction outside of the World Trade Organization where we might protect.
Is this just about trade, though? Or is this, can you use trade to end the thuggery, the stealing, the cheating, the torturing of their own people?
It's a rebalancing of power in the world. It was a choice by the West, led by the United States, to invest trillions of dollars and give concessionary lending, allow pretty permissive transfer of technology under the theory that China would grow and develop and modernize, our differences would narrow, our areas of cooperation would expand. It's kind of the bet. It was summarized by Deputy Secretary Bob Zoellick during the late Bush administration as this concept of responsible stakeholdership. But the opposite is what has happened, and now that's why we're having to break. And so I was a part of that consensus in the 90s and the early 2000s. I argued for the bet. I think the sin is of ignoring the evidence. And I agree with President Trump. The evidence in the recent few decades is overwhelming that we have to go in a different direction. And China has driven that.
Steve, I got to tell you, this is some of the most cogent thoughts I have had on China in 7 minutes of television in a very long time. We're grateful, and given what's happening with China, we're going to rely on your expertise going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leland. Pleasure.
Yes, sir. The Boy Scouts of America now go by Scouting America. No more Boy Scouts. Should that be enough for the Defense Department to cut ties with the organization? Some people made an incredible amount of money today. Some of the big movers included United Airlines, Kohl's, Tesla, Trump Media, Apple Computer. And all you had to do to get in on the fun was listen to Trump himself. He wrote on Truth Social just minutes after the market opened, "This is a great time to buy," 3 exclamation points. Hours later, he announced a temporary pause on tariffs. The market soared, best day point-wise in history. The question is, how many other people listen to Trump? I'm not talking about people, random people. I'm talking about the people who knew what he was going to do, who knew the plan.
Over the last few days, I've been thinking about it. I've been dealing with Scott, with Howard, with some other people that are very professional. And I think it probably came together early this morning, fairly early this morning, just wrote it up.
And right before the announcement, there were some big bets made in the stock market that the announcement would happen. And if those people knew what Trump was going to do, that would be insider trading, unfair, illegal, and wrong. So there's either 2 things going on. Trump is enforcing the strictest ethics rules ever, and there was no shenanigans, or there's a lot of insider trading. And to state the obvious, Donald Trump's relationship with ethics is casual, which makes him like everybody else here in Washington. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin covers stocks for a living, had an inkling this would happen. Here's what he said just Monday.
Given what the government's been doing and this administration's been doing, it would not shock me, and I hate to speculate, if we were to find out that a whole bunch of people who work in Washington as our elected leaders, one way or the other, ultimately sold stocks last week, or potentially worse than that, shorted the market.
Doesn't have to shock you, Andrew. It happens all the time. It's been happening for years. But in this case, right, about the Trump situation, Democrats in Congress are already saying they are sure wrongdoing is happening, and Adam Schiff is here to investigate.
I'm writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs, and are people cashing in? There is just all too much opportunity for people in the White House and the administration to be insider trading. An administration that has their own meme coins and is already engaged in self-interested dealing when Elon is doging agencies that are doing oversight of his own businesses. In that kind of corrupt climate, you have to assume the worst, and we're going to try to find out.
Oh, yeah, because Adam Schiff has found out so much. But here is the problem in a larger sense. Forget Schiff, who's beclowned himself. Congress investigating insider trading is like O.J. Simpson trying to find the real killer. Congress people inside trade all the time. And we know that because they don't beat the market just on tariff day. They beat the market year after year. Here's a look at the highest performing portfolios in Congress. It's lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. A dozen plus members of Congress beat the S&P 500 year after year. That puts them in Warren Buffett category, not necessarily these folks, but others. And they do it while allegedly working full-time in Congress. Adam Schiff should investigate. And while he's at it, investigate why more than 80% of Americans want a ban on stock trading in Congress, and it hasn't happened yet. For what it's worth, we looked. There was a bill banning stock trading in Congress back when Schiff was in the House, H.R. 1679. Adam Schiff declined to co-sponsor it. Surprises no one that members of Congress get rich trading stocks with all the information that we don't have. And it would surprise no one if members of Trump's team or their families or friends or past business associates got wind of what was happening and made a lot of money. It's why Americans rightly hate all of Washington. Because Washington looks out for itself, not for you. Donald Trump keeps hammering away and winning on the issue of no boys in girls' sports. But what about girls in the Boy Scouts? Different thing. It was all the rage a few years ago. The Boy Scouts became just scouting. Well, in their words, scouting America. For now, NBC reports the Pentagon might cut ties with the Scouts. Critics, like the advisor to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News producer, say the group formerly known as the Boy Scouts is too woke. No decision has been made. The military ties to the Scouts is understandable. Being an Eagle Scout used to help you get into West Point and Annapolis. The Boy Scouts were once a place where boys learned to become men, surviving in the woods, starting fires, serving others. To make friends was all a part of the experience.
Boy Scout movement. As Scouts, the youth of the nation learn to respect each other's beliefs and origins, to be of service to each other and to the community, to accept the responsibilities as well as the privileges of their democracy and freedom.
The experiences that every boy needs to become a worthwhile citizen.
The videos have changed a little bit. Now, not so much of that old stuff. This is one of the latest promotion videos for Scouting America. It shows all girls. Jill Simonian is the director of outreach for PragerU Kids. Just wrote an op-ed, Scouting America, hurting boys and girls alike. Who needs confident and service-oriented men, she asks. My daughters do, and America does. No argument there. Are these mutually exclusive, confident, service-oriented men and girls in the Scouts?
Listen, the title of my article says, I am a mom of daughters. And when I heard that the Boy Scouts were no longer the Boy Scouts, I was angry, I was frustrated, and now I'm just plain sad. Because as Americans, we know that masculinity is not toxic. It is necessary. It is what helped build this country, and women helped build this country too. But masculinity is what built this country into the exceptional country that we are. And we need men, good men, strong men, courageous men with grit to have a free and functioning society.
Okay. Forgive me, but I'll ask the question again. Can boys not learn that just in the Scouts? It has to be the Boy Scouts?
I think it does have to be the Boy Scouts. I think that having an organization dedicated where boys can be with boys only, and they're not worried about the girls are acting one way or not acting another way. When boys and girls are together, especially during the middle school years, as I know with my own daughters, they tend to act differently. They tend to feel inhibited. And yeah, we do need organization solely devoted to boys so that they can be boys and develop their innate skills. And we do need organizations dedicated to girls. Okay. Scouting membership over time. 1972, 6.5 million boys. 2024, 1 million youth. The idea of scouting seems to be dying. I never did it because I don't like camping. But why is that? If being a Boy Scout is so important, building masculinity is so important, why is no boys going to the Boy Scouts anymore? I don't know. I don't have boys. If I did have boys, I would have enrolled them in the Boy Scouts to develop those skills because it's a time-tested institution. I think many parents are just plain scattered. I think that our priorities as parents have...
Are you seeing this changing? Now that Trump's changed, is Trump come in, is this changed?
I don't think it has anything to do with Trump, quite frankly. I think it's just a matter of what's been happening the past few decades with parents and kids and quite frankly, there's a lot of absent parents out there. There are not as many fathers in the homes as there should be. And I think it's a case of scattered parenting and scattered priorities and not having pride in our own country. Quite frankly, I do believe that many parents do not understand what our foundational history is, what our foundational responsibility is.
Hold on.
And we're not putting our kids in the institution to preserve those values as Americans.
Yeah, the pendulum's swinging back. Real quick, connect for me America and the Boy Scouts. Is it that they don't teach love of country not in the Boy Scouts?
I know that the Girl Scouts completely abandoned love of country through personal experience. I don't think that they are encouraging love of country in the Boy Scouts, according to many of my friends.
Yeah, they're not celebrating it in the same way. No, you're right. I mean, 100% right. That American exceptionalism isn't taught in the same way, which is too bad. Jillian, great conversation. Thank you. Let us know when you're in D.C. Love to have you on.
Thank you so much.
You'll be talking about tomorrow has to do with my favorite sport when we come back.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the Go. Senior national correspondent Brian Entin. We're here for you 24/7 on the News Nation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play News Nation.
The Masters golf tournament starts in Augusta, Georgia tomorrow. That means the next 2 days should be national holidays, but they're not.